I first met Steve Newman in New York when I was taking over his role at Ericsson. We spent a year working closely together, and I learned an enormous amount from him, not only about leadership, but about life. Steve has lived on several continents, hitchhiked across America, served in the Peace Corps in Uganda, taught, traveled, and collected extraordinary stories. But after reading his beautiful memoir, Where the Lantern Hangs, I realized that the real thread running through his life is not only adventure, it's curiosity and laughter. Steve has this remarkable ability to find humor almost everywhere. Even life's hardest moments become stories that make you smile and somehow also make you think. This conversation is about finding home, about leaving and returning, about love, and about living with an open mind. You will hear about memorable encounters with Marilyn Monroe, Idi Amin, and an America I never knew existed. But above all, you will discover how Steve's curiosity opened doors. Whether sharing a long beer stroll in Uganda or meeting people from completely different walks of life, he shows how approaching every encounter with curiosity and an open mind can transform the way we experience the world. Before someone turns Where the Lantern Hangs into a movie, which I sincerely hope happens one day, don't miss reading Steve's wonderful memoir. And until then, don't miss this conversation either. You will love episode 6. Even if you know Steve, I think you'll be surprised by the sheer number of adventures he has experienced. You will laugh as much as we did, and will be reminded of what an extraordinary gift a well-lived life can be. Yes, summer 2026 is going by far too quickly. Viva vida!
Hello, Steve.
Hello, Geraldo. Good morning, Sweden.
How are you doing? Calling from Paris.
Oh, fine. Fine. It's a cool morning.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, for once. Yeah.
Because it has been these heat waves we are
They're terrible. And there's another one coming back, too. So, yeah.
Here it has been nice weather until recently, but now has been a little bit chilly, and even windy.
Right.
And but this with weather now it's Kona, this part where I live.
Okay.
It's getting so heat up, so we have six vineyards.
Oh, yeah.
Just around here, and they're taking people from France to grow the wine culture here in Sweden.
Wow. Okay.
Things changing. Steve, you know that we met in New York first time. And by the way, do you know that we are here doing this podcast thanks to you, right?
Well, you said that.
Yeah. Yes, one of the chats, you said you're doing podcasts and this program, Riverside, and how exciting. So I got so excited. That's why we are doing this summer series. Thanks to you, Steve.
Okay. Well, that's good. That's good.
And I felt like learning. I'm thinking that introducing you, we met first in New York. So I was succeeding you. You're going to retire from Ericsson
Right.
as program director for the executive programs. And we met in New York. And the first thing you said, let's go for a walk. And after reading your book, I understand more and more the pleasure of walking. And we're going to come back to that. And, the year we spent together, because I went alongside with you, we had these daily calls, remember?
Yeah.
The year that I learned most in my life, I think it was when I was 13 to 14, I read all the books you could read. I never read so much. I learned a lot at this age. And then this year, I think around 2011 or so, when I had the pleasure and to go a whole year with you. Fantastic. And thanks, Steve.
I enjoyed it too, Roland.
Yeah.
And it was just a lovely way for me to retire and know that you were coming on in that role. Made me feel good. It's the way it should be done. We did it right.
Yes. And we have the theme you chose, Where the Lantern Hangs. And
Yeah.
that is also the title of the wonderful memoir that I read. And Steve, it needs to become a film, you know? You have such a rich life, so many house. I mean, it's amazing, you know, the since childhood and all the adventures you have been in some ways it's Huckleberry Finn in steroids and across the globe, you know, with all the adventures you have done in your life. It's amazing. And I think this is going to be a wonderful chat together. And with that, I would like, let's go through, explain where the lantern hangs, the title of your book. And I want to hear everything about writing a memoir, you know, and your staging life now after 2012. I think we're going to come there. But starting with the little Steve in New York, because that's fascinating with your dog Spinach and all the adventures. And I hope you tell all these amazing encounters you had with people like Marilyn Monroe and others. It's simply amazing. And Steve, please.
Well, Geraldo, I grew up in New York in an amazing time. All right. I mean, growing up in the 1950s in the middle of Manhattan, it was a fantastic experience. I lived in a tenement apartment. You could go out the kitchen window and stand on a rooftop and look out over the neighborhood. There were amazing people in the building where I lived. And I had the streets. And from a very early age, what I really liked to do was to get out and walk. And you could do that. I mean, you know, there was nothing to be afraid of, nothing to worry about, plenty of interesting things to see. There was a lot of tension at home with my parents, so I really couldn't wait to get out of the house. And they said, well, you know, you have to get back by 6 o'clock. I got back at 6 o'clock. I was very busy out there.
Not 1 minute before, right?
No, exactly. You know, exactly 6. Then I developed this habit of always being on time. I mean, exactly on time, right? So that's not a bad habit to have. And it started when I was a kid. But I also grew up, I think, in a culture, you know, I kind of a Jewish background, even though my mother was not Jewish, but my father was Jewish, my father's family. And it was a culture where you were supposed to be funny, or you should try to be funny, at least. Otherwise, nothing was going to happen. I mean, no one was going to feed you. No one was going to pay any attention to you. So I grew up with that. And we had the great comedians in those days. It was on the radio, and then the beginning of television. I don't know if you saw that Mel Brooks was 100 years old, right?
Yes,
So you and I are recording this on July the 6th. I don't know when you're going to show this. I hope he's still there when you show it. The guy's 100 years old. And these were my heroes, right? Mel Brooks, Groucho Marx, all these people. So I grew up with that, and it was very much a culture of telling stories and people listening to you and listening to other people's stories. So that was very much my childhood. The other thing I can tell you was being in the middle of Manhattan, you're very aware of stars, you know, people who live there. I actually met Greta Garbo. How about that? You know, she would come to buy the paper. I'd go down to buy the paper. There she was. It's Greta Garbo. But you didn't talk to her because she wanted to be alone, right? So we left her alone, but that was fine. But the biggest star of all, I mean, I think the biggest star that the world has ever seen was Marilyn Monroe. And we knew that she had moved into the neighborhood. She was married to Arthur Miller. She lived a block away, but nobody had ever seen her, right? But you followed her. Like, I remember she was riding on a pink elephant, and she led the circus to town down Third Avenue. I was there, right? The first elephant or the first animal, she's sitting on top of it, right? With this sequin like bathing suit or something like that. Everybody was fascinated by Marilyn Monroe, but nobody had ever met her until, Geraldo, until the summer of 1957, when I had my dog Spinach that I got for my 11th birthday, right, October 1956. I was always taking him out for a walk. I'm walking down 57th Street between, between 2nd and 1st Avenue. Who is coming up the street but Marilyn Monroe? And there she is with the hair, with the skirt, with that wiggle, with that smile. She stops and talks to me and pets my dog Spinach, which was a long dachshund. She asks me the dog's name. She asks me my name, makes a big fuss over me and the dog. And then she goes out and she hails a taxi. She gets into the taxi, closes the door, and winds down the window and blows me a kiss. Can you believe this? Marilyn Monroe blows me a kiss. And that was the greatest day of my life. Everything is downhill after that. Nothing can compare to that. Anyway, I grew up with my father. At that point, my parents were divorced, which was a good thing. And I wound up with my father, a bit like Tina you had on the podcast. I went up on this hot summer night. I said, look, you can't believe what happened to me. I met Marilyn Monroe walking down the street. Then my father started to walk the dog. And he walked the dog. He went up and down the street. The poor dog came home. He laid down on the linoleum floor in the kitchen. He started drooling. And the poor dog was trying to sleep. My father would walk the dog again and again and again and again. That poor dog was completely exhausted, and my father never met Marilyn Monroe. I'm the only one who met Marilyn Monroe.
Oh,
That's
the whole book, for instance, you understand that your parents fight a lot, right? And maybe one reason why you walked, I don't know what's the cause or effect, but because maybe you just love to walk and you can always at 6 o'clock,
Yeah.
But the thing is, your whole book is so full of humor. I mean, it's not like you acknowledge that your parents didn't have well and divorced, right? But I mean, it gave you impulse to walk and meet Marilyn Monroe and do all this stuff. It's wonderful.
But humor was my way. I mean, I've never had therapy. I'm listening to the people on the podcast like Marie-Louise. I think it's absolutely fantastic. And my way was just to try to tell stories, right? And I think it helped me a lot. Telling stories and walking, that's basically what I did. And when I thought about writing the memoir, I started by thinking, okay, I want to write this memoir. What kinds of stories can I tell? That was even before I knew what the theme was. That was before I knew what the title was, right? But if I can line up these stories and then see what I've got here, right? And then see what this is all about, that's how I did it.
Very nice. And then, I mean, your adventures both in New York, but then early doing something that I don't think is even possible today, hitchhiking all the way to the West Coast, right?
Yeah, I hitchhiked from Binghamton, New York, where I was a university student, to San Francisco. I don't think people do that anymore, and I wouldn't do it again. But I did it, and you meet a lot of nice people along the way.
Yes. Yeah. I did it, but with Greyhound, 1981, when I met Annika, right? But
I came back from the West Coast on a Greyhound bus, but that was before your time. I came back in 1964. The same experience that you had. It's amazing, right?
I just can think about your father and like, oh my gosh, what he's doing,
Yeah.
And then I don't know if you want to jump already to a little bit later, what you call the act number two, when you,
Yeah.
from your childhood, that is simply fantastic, meeting, just you wanted a dog, and you are in this summer place, and you say to your everybody had a dog, and you say, well, we also have a dog, and then you which you didn't, and then you say, and his name is Spinach, and then
Yeah, because everybody else had a dog like Buster or King or something like that. And these kids say, well, what about you? Have you got a dog? I say, oh, yeah, well, yeah, I got a dog too. And they say, well, what's your dog's name? I said, well, my dog's name is Spinach. And the guy said, well, I never heard of a dog like that. Ah, well, I got you there, right? 'Cause everybody's got a dog named Buster or King, right? But I've got a dog named Spinach. And that's what I said when I went to camp. And then I got the dog, right? So my parents were not all bad. Right? They gave me this dog for my 11th birthday. They said, what do you want to call it? I said, let's call the dog Spinach. And the reason why I called him Spinach was because of this cartoon character, Popeye.
yes,
You know about Popeye?
yes, I love it.
And he ate spinach all the time.
Yes,
So I said, I got a dog named Spinach and I like spinach. And so that's the story behind the dog.
and you are then a little bit, I would say, older, and you decide. You're so curious about other places, and so to go
Yeah.
into the Peace Corps,
Right.
and I mean, it's simply fantastic to understand how Peace Corps was organized back then, and
Yeah.
send you to see if you're really capable to go to the hard conditions of. I think it would be Tanzania first, but then it became
Yeah.
again.
I was training for Tanzania. Right.
And they send you to the middle of the US and or some places, and that you have to tell more. And I have a passage here that I want to say, but let me find it.
Yeah.
And please, why is that? Tell the hardship of going and learning about these different places in the US before you go to Tanzania.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the idea was, they gather us all together at Syracuse University in New York,
Mhm.
and then the idea is to put you under some sort of stress, right,
Yeah?
to see how you react. And the other thing was, at the time, it was the golden age of psychologists.
Okay.
So many studies come out of that time. Now we're into the 60s, right?
Mhm.
Middle 60s. Everybody's doing a study on somebody. Everybody's being observed. Everybody's writing down data. So a bunch of Peace Corps trainees from all around the country. And that's a perfect data set, right? To do questionnaires and analysis and putting you under stress and see what you make of it. They love that sort of stuff. Yeah.
And then you are in a family, right?
Yeah. So they send us in batches of 10. I think we were about 60 people in the program. So I walk into this dormitory and there's a list on the wall. And it's got lists of 10 by 10 by 10. I'm in the first list. And it says Lexington, Kentucky, October 9th, 1966. What in the world is this? They send us down there to live with families. This is Appalachia. Really poor, mostly white, some black. They send me down to live with this woman, 300-pound woman. She's got 13 kids, right? And she's obviously being paid by the government to take me on for 1 week, right? So I get to sleep on the couch. And I don't know where everybody else had to go because of me, and there's an outhouse and everything like that. So you have this kind of hardship experience, but I didn't think it was a hardship. I thought it was terrific. I like this lady and all the neighbors and all these crazy things that happened in this place. And what we had to do, you're supposed to have a task, right?
Mhm.
And the task was to go out with another Peace Corps trainee. And I went out with this gal called Ivy. Ivy was black. How about that, right? So Ivy is black. And we go around with a petition, right, to ask people to sign up so that water can be pumped in to this area so people would not use their wells. I mean, it was an extraordinary experience. And for one week in Kentucky, outside of Lexington, Kentucky, honestly, I had the time of my life. Okay.
And I mean, I need to read one passage.
Oh, please. I know what it's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, I read here. So one evening, we went to a Pentecostal church service. A gigantic man picked up a guitar and snapped the E string immediately. Showing foresight, he had a fresh supply in a drawer in the pulpit. Everyone gave testimony, and when it was my turn, I talked about how I found Jesus quite recently, only last week, as a matter of fact, and the difference that he was already making in my life. I rambled on and finished with a stretch of talking in tongues, figuring that that was the safest course. I had not been at a theater major for nothing, and my conscience was wrestling with the contradictions of lying and self-preservation. After me, Evie stood up and said barely audibly, "I agree with him."
Oh, it was, I can remember. Don't ask me to talk on tongues today. I don't think I can. No, but I felt very protective of this gal. She was extremely thin, right? I don't know what she was feeling. She was kind of shaking, right? So we go into this church, and I figured, okay, I'm going to do the talking, right? So, everybody's going around. And, we had the pastor snake around.
Oh, yes,
So they give us a snake. And I don't know, I've never seen a snake before, right? So you had to grab the thing behind the head, right? And they're shaking its toe. I don't know if it was poisonous or not, right? And then I take the snake and I give the snake to the next. This thing is going all around, right? And then you had to give testimony. So I'm thinking, what the heck? And I do that little number down there. But it was all to protect this gal. And I know she was coming next, right? And I didn't know what she was going to say, but she was very clever, right? So she gets up and says, I agree with him. All right, we got it. So then
Steve, I read in the book and that passage, or the whole passage in your training, I didn't know this existed in the US. And I mean, in the whole idea, this was the hardship to going to Africa. And it was supposed to be Tanzania, but there was this political issue.
Right.
It became Uganda. And you passed all tests, and you are about to take the flight. So your big adventure, because you've always been curious about traveling and, we have a saying in Brazil, that I love, a crocodile that stands still becomes a bag. And you're really not a crocodile, always moving and traveling, finding new places. I don't know. We're going to come through the many countries you lived, but then there is one thing. To go to Africa, you need to bike. And just the day before, you are at Central Park, you get a bike and you learn how to bike.
Yeah.
And
I didn't know how to ride a bike, and I was ashamed of it, right? So I go down to Peace Corps training. I'm from New York City. I don't have a bike, but everybody else knew how to ride a bike, or I thought they did. And you had to learn how to ride a bike. So I thought, oh my goodness, what am I going to do, right? I mean, I didn't know how to drive a car either, but I wasn't going to, do that in Uganda. So I go to Central Park, and you can rent a bike. So I rented the bike, but I didn't know how to ride the bike. So I see this lady outside, and I said, could you help me figure out how to ride this bike? And she tells me how to ride the bike, and we go back and forth. Very, very nice lady. I start riding the bike, and I spent 3 days riding the bike around Central Park, and I got it. Now, Central Park is where I spent a lot of my childhood. I mean, I really, really love the place. Now I'm riding around on a bike like I'm a squire or something. I've had a completely different perspective of the park. Once I learned how to ride the bike, I knew I was safe. And I go to Uganda, And let me tell you, there was no hardship in Uganda. There's just a lot of nice people and a lot of fun and a lot of riding around my bike. The hardship and the strange things were back in Kentucky,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And I learned a lot from that experience.
Yes. And you come to Africa for what was 2 years, right?
2 years, yeah.
And then, I mean, even there, you are in these places and things in history that's unbelievable that we just hear in history books, because you meet Idi Amin.
I do, yeah.
And in swimming trunks.
Well, let me back up a little bit, Geraldo. When I started to write the memoir, I think, okay, I'm not a famous person, so I mean, I got to put some stories in there, something, right? I mean, if you write an autobiography, if you're Michelle Obama, everything is interesting, right? You can write a great big book, and people, that was her second grade teacher. She used to eat pancakes. She used to do this. Everything is interesting. If you're like me, you have to have something there. It has to be true, and it's all true. But you have to really select what you write, because you can't put in a lot of details. So I'm thinking, what have I done? So I meet Marilyn Monroe. That's got to go in the book. I meet Idi Amin. That's got to go in the book. I do a bunch of things, right? And then I realized that when you line up all these things, I did this, and I did this, and I did this, I was there next to important events, without knowing that, right? So that became a theme in the book. Now, the Idi Amin story, I had been a teacher in Uganda for 2 years. I went back to the States, and then I was invited to come back to Uganda to be a trainer for incoming volunteers. They had changed the training from university training in the US to in-country training in Uganda. And if people didn't make the training, they flew back home. So then I was living in the capital city, not up country, right, where I was a teacher, but in the capital city. At that point, Idi Amin had become president through a coup d'etat, right? So there he was. And he used to like to come to this very fancy hotel in Kampala, the capital, and swim at lunchtime, right? And most of the people in the hotel were white people swimming in the hotel because they had to stay in a hotel, right? This guy would show up and he would say, okay, let's race, right? So you get 8 people diving into the water. Everybody's looking at him, making sure that he's going to win, right? And really, I was in the lane next to him, right? I'm not a bad swimmer, but I think I'm not going to beat this guy, right? So we come to the end, and he beats me, by about a length and so on. I'm Idi Amin, that's really terrific. You're a great swimmer. And there he was. That's how I met him, right?
And the time in Uganda, what I find interesting is one thing that comes across your whole life, your curiosity and how to say, you're fearless, Steve. I mean, I think I wrote in even some pieces, in some ways we are quite different in this aspect. I'm a little bit more cautious, worried person. And so, and it was so interesting to see how all the other volunteers from Peace Corps, I mean, they were invited for parties to eat this food and say that there would be a little bit, and would say yes to everything, and he never got sick. And
I never got sick.
Yeah.
No.
And one thing leading to another, another good conversation and meeting people and so this is...
I think, and I go back to Tina's podcast, which I watched yesterday. She's got these 9 different personalities, right? And I think I really connected with what she said about harmony, right? Seeking harmony, right? I don't know if that was Enneagram number 9 or number 1 or something like that. And when I looked at that podcast, that's me. I want to blend in, and I want to do what the other people are doing, so that we can have fun together, so that they're going to like me, right? So the big thing that was going on where I lived was everything revolved around drinking this millet beer, right? You make a big pot of this stuff, and you got a really long straw. I mean, the thing could be 3 feet long, right? And all the parties, right, were on this. So I lived with, one American guy, one English guy, and one Ugandan guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the English guy and the American, I can't, I don't know what's in there. I said, listen, I'm ready for this stuff because otherwise I'm not going to make any friends. I'm not going to have any fun. I'm not going to meet any girls. Nothing's going to happen, right? So I went to all these parties with this beer and I loved it, right? And they hadn't seen somebody like me go out there and enjoy this beer. And it tasted very, very good. It's warm, right?
Mm.
And you pass the straw around. Actually, what am I doing? Counterclockwise, I think. Anyway, and the men and women, everybody dressed up, everybody having a good time. And it was the key to my social life
Yes.
in Uganda. Yeah.
And it's not cold, right?
No, it's warm. It's warm.
Yeah.
It's warm. So you've got the millet kind of bubbling away at the bottom of the pot, and then you add water on top, and it kind of bubbles up. And you got this straw, and at the bottom of the straw, there's this filter, right, to keep out the big chunks of millet, right? And you suck it, really hard.
And Steve, people loved you so much, so even the kids were born, and they gave you your name, Steve.
Yeah.
Steve number 5 all of a sudden, right?
Yeah. Oh, this was the funniest thing. So I show up in this place, right? I got one roommate. He's called Steven. Right? Oh, man, there's 2 Stevens in the house. We had a cook. He's called Steven. Goodness, now they got 3 Stevens. Then we had this other guy in the yard, right? He used to do the chickens and the plant. He's also called Steven. So we got 4 Stevens in this place, right? And then one day, this woman is coming down the road, and she has a baby right in front of the house. And the question is, what's she going to name it, right? And someone said, well, why don't you name it Stephen? They got 4 Stevens here. So she names it Stephen. 5 Stevens in the same place, all spelled my way with the PH. Unbelievable.
Yes. But then, I mean, this amazing time in Uganda, but you have to leave.
Yeah, I had to leave, and this is woo.
And Steve, I want to read one more passage, if it's okay, and
Right.
a passage that living here in Sweden, but with Brazil, I really resonates because it's this, and maybe you can explain also the title
Sure.
of the memoir. So let me just fetch it here, and yeah. Okay, so time passed slowly, and then quite quickly as I counted off the days until I would have to leave.
Yeah.
2 years, 5 years, 20 years, how long should you stay in a lovely place? How long is long enough to truly know where you are? And how long is so long that you reach the date when you cannot go home again, even if you do return? I keep me awake at night, struggle between staying and going took root during my 2nd year in Uganda, one that would recur at various other times of my life. At least if you were born in Uganda and never strayed more than a bicycle ride away from your village, you would not have to worry where your home was. This is beautiful, Steve, and I think, again, living 2 different countries, it's...
I think so many of us and so many people on your summer series are, they come from one place and they live in another place. It's great to go somewhere, you learn a lot. But then comes this moment of, do I stay and do I leave? And if you leave, right, and then you come back home, it can be really hard because, first of all, not too many people are interested in where you were, especially in my case. But also coming back home is not the way it was when you left it, right? And then you kind of start to feel lost and you wonder how long and who am I and what is home? And the book, one of the themes in the book is what is home? And then I expressed that by saying, where does the lantern hang, right? And the origin of that story is that when I worked for this big company that you and I worked for. I took a lot of trips, just like you.
Mm-hmm.
When I came back home here in Paris, my wife would put a lantern in the flower box, right? And she would light it at night. So I'm coming across the courtyard, and you have all these apartments, but there's only one apartment that has a lantern lit. And I said, well, that's home. That's my home. So that experience in Uganda, and I'm going, way back then, where do I belong? What's going to happen if I leave? How long should I stay? These kinds of choices, these kinds of feelings, you don't know that they're coming. But when you go someplace and you have another experience, they start swirling around, and leaving is a very, very difficult thing. And also arriving back home is difficult. So I would say, my whole life after that is a series of leaving and coping with leaving and arriving and all the feelings that go along with that.
Yes. But you live to New York, and it comes a period that it really resonates with me, because it becomes coming back can mean a cultural shock.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Which then, you have a lot of different jobs that you went back and forth and trying to establish yourself. And really funny stuff also, because the origin of the podcast, when you even rented a studio, right? Tell me just a little bit about that, because I thought it was a particularly interesting, funny one.
What, when I was a comedian?
No. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm back in New York. I'm always back in New York, in between these experiences. And now we're into the 70s, right? Mm. And there was another guy who'd been in Uganda. He was in New York, and both of us are trying to fit in, and both of us are kind of, do we really belong here? And we're reacting to things, mm-hmm. right? And we thought, well, how are we going to cope with this? Because neither one of us are really getting on with life and finding a good job. Our heart is in Uganda and our head is in New York. Oh, my goodness. So we said, well, listen, why don't we get on the radio, right, and have a show? So there was an ad in the Village Voice, right? And it said, you can buy 10 one-hour sessions on a radio station in New Jersey, mm-hmm. and you can have a studio with an engineer, and he's going like this, and you can have music and all this sort of stuff. $300. So what you got to do is you got to prepare a half-hour show, and you have 1 hour to get the show in there, right? Mm-hmm. And it's at 1 o'clock in the morning. And they said, if you do this thing, $300, we'll help sell an ad on your show. So we'd get together during the week, and we prepared the show. And we called it 3 chances to make 2, right? Basketball, in a foul situation, you get 3 chances to make 2 shots. You miss one, you get a 3rd chance. So we came up with 3 skits for each show. And it was a lot of fun. And it was in the wintertime, right? So we got to go over to New Jersey. It's freezing out, right? And I remember what I told you earlier, my heroes when I was a kid with Mel Brooks and Sid Caesar and Groucho Marx. So it's like, I'm going to be Mel Brooks too, right? I'm going to go over to New Jersey and we're going to do this stuff and somebody's going to listen, right? There's 15 million people in New York that could listen to this stuff. Somebody is going to think this is terrific and discover me and come along with a contract. All I got to do is sign it, right? So we go over there, and I couldn't find anybody who listened to this stuff. Nobody. And we said, look, let's offer a prize, right? Anybody who listens can call in. They get a pizza, right? So listen, if you're listening right now, here's the number to call, and you will get a free pizza. Nobody calls. Geez, I've got 2 pizzas. Nobody calls it. How about $1 million? Nobody ever listened to this thing. I found one person, and she was my best friend. 15 million people. I don't know how many radios that is. Look at 5 million radios. One person. She lived in Staten Island. She listened to this thing. So somebody listened. So then we said, well, this is not working, right? It's not us making the joke. The joke is on us, right? We're spending $300 for one person to listen to the show. So then at the end of this thing, we said to this people who were running this thing, can we have the tape? You got to pay for the tape. What do you mean we got to pay for the tape? We just made the tape. So $20, you get the tape. That was my career as a comedian on the radio. That was it.
That's it. One person, and with the pizza, the prizes, and didn't help.
Yeah.
And after time in New York, you decide to go to Norway, of all places. Yeah. And you are in Bergen? Yeah.
Oh, Bergen.
For a while, but then you go to Bodø.
Yeah.
And you become a TV star.
Bodø was not so bad. I mean, it's on the coast.
Yeah.
It's windy.
Yeah.
It's cold. It was fun. I had fun.
Yeah, you were there 2 years, and maybe you didn't listen, but you became a TV star.
What's that?
You became a TV star.
Yeah. Oh. Bodø Glimt, right?
Yeah.
They were in the Champions League this year. They got to the quarterfinals.
Yeah.
Just in parentheses, last night was Brazil-Bodø, right?
Yes.
Did you watch it?
Don't talk about that.
Oh, Brazil-Norway. Don't talk about it. Means you watched it. Okay. The number 6 for Norway is Patrick Berg. Okay. Somebody listening to this might make sense of that. So I'm watching this game last night. Patrick Berg is the grandson of Harold Berg. Harold Berg was the star of Bodø Glimt back in 1974, right? Now, Bodø Glimt was in the Northern Norway division. They don't have that anymore. It's all one big. Now, Bodø Glimt is the best team in Norway, Champions League, playing Manchester City, all that sort of stuff. Back then, it was the north of Norway, but they could get into the cup, right? So when I got there, they started playing the big teams from the south, advancing in Norway's cup. So they make it to the final. The final in Oslo in May of 1975, before the King. So I'm in Bodø, right? And if you're a Bodø Glimt fan, you walk around with a 6-foot toothbrush, yellow toothbrush. That way you can brush away the opposition, right? So the Norsk Kringkasting, right? The big TV station, they send this reporter up to Bodø to interview the fans, right? And she's got the accent from Oslo. Meanwhile, I've got the accent from the north of Norway, right? Someone said, you got to talk to this guy. We got this American here. He's walking around with the 6-foot toothbrush, right? So she finds me. She said, listen, I got an interview. I said, what's this thing with Bodø? I talk about Bodø Glimt. She said, listen, your Norwegian is terrific. You know all this slang. I said, listen, lady, I thought that I think they're going to win today. So I got up very early in the morning and I started learning the language. I said, this is incredible. I said, no, it's really true. I said, I got up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I never had lunch. I studied Norwegian all day long. And this is the first conversation I ever had. And I said, you know what? If I didn't have so much to drink the night before, I would have studied even more. She said, oh my God, I never heard a story like this. Meanwhile, everybody in Bodø was cracking up. I couldn't buy a beer for weeks. I'm on national TV live in Norway just before the game, right? So the game starts. Bodø beats Vard 2-0, and they win the cup. Then they fly back to Bodø. They go over to the SAS Hotel, which was kind of the social center of Bodø. Enormous party that night. But I was a big hero because I fooled the TV reporter from Oslo.
Oh, that is wonderful. And the the Norway, it was 2 years or so, right? In
Two
Bodø.
years, 2 years. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then you feel to come back to the US again. And by the way, you're leaving most of the time by teaching, right? As a teacher.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a theater teacher, drama teacher. Yeah.
And we come soon to a very important part of your life that I got from the book. But before that, I think that's when you come back to the US.
Yeah.
You meet your mother.
Yeah.
She had divorced, and she lived in another city, and you haven't met for quite a while, I think
Right,
for
right.
10 years or so, and you meet in a restaurant. And I would like to read this passage because I thought
Sure,
it was
sure.
very beautiful. And again, just stay with me. I need to find it here. Yes. You guys meet over, and I understand that as a mother, I mean, you had really good early childhood with her,
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
out to all baseball games and so. But then after she divorced, you didn't meet her so often, and I understood that she was kind of worried for you and the choices you made, and she was rich, as I understood, or right, and worried about your future.
Yeah.
And then you end up saying she felt no obligation toward me. There were no plans to make up for the lost time, and clearly no invitation to come visit.
Yeah.
She was a pretty and successful woman who dressed elegantly, and I was a guy who roamed around without a plan, dressed like a graduate student with antlers on his sweater. And then she drove away, and that was the last time I ever saw her.
Yeah. Yeah.
This made a big impression for me, and I just want to hear from you because, yeah, I had a very close relation with my mother, right? And then it's almost so difficult to imagine. And but at the same time, that's your life. That's how you. And you didn't suffer with that. Tell me a little bit of your feelings.
Well, I was very close to my mother when I was a small child, and we did all these great things together. Train rides to the baseball games, lots of things. Those are the memories that I have. Then my parents get divorced, and I grew up with my father. I was happy about that because they were always fighting. It was quite tempestuous. It was a bit too much for a child. So my mother leaves New York and goes to Milwaukee and marries a very successful man. Then he goes to Denver, right? And so my mother goes from one place to another. My mother never graduated high school, right? She never had much of an education. She becomes more and more successful. My mother was very beautiful, by the way. So she looked lovely in all these lovely clothes. She got these cars, and she kept showing up in a blue Lincoln Continental or a red Lincoln Continental. And like I was going nowhere in life, right? And this time when I saw her, and I think it's 1974 or 5, we meet in Binghamton, New York. I had gone to school there, but it was halfway between where she was living in Buffalo, New York, and where I was living in New York City, right? And I was home from Norway, but it was halfway between New York and Binghamton. And I meet my mother, and we go out for dinner. I hadn't seen my mother at that point. It's exactly probably about 10 years at least. And my mother was so successful, and she had such expectations for me. And I came across, I'm sure, I was an adventurer. I had this kind of leftist way of talking. Everybody was a socialist or something back in the 1970s. My mother was going in the complete opposite direction. I mean, she was a very successful woman. She was a businesswoman. And I show up dressed like this, spouting all this nonsense. And I don't know how it landed on my mother, but I just couldn't get any traction with my mother. And I felt like I must have been a disappointment for my mother. And we just didn't spend enough time together. If we had another day or another week, but the time went by, and we had this lovely dinner, and I'm looking at my mother, and my mother's looking at me, and we just didn't connect. Now, of course, at the time, I didn't realize that it was the last time I would see my mother. But when you write a memoir, you go back to these moments, and you're able to say these things, and you're able to think about these things. But it was a very, very, very painful experience for me. My relationship with my mother really is a very, very defining thing in my life. This feeling of being inadequate, not measuring up to her standard, and then not having her support. So yeah, that's what that was all about.
And you're living mostly like as a teacher. This has been a common thread, but you're doing, because of your curiosity, a lot of courses and taking new,
Yeah.
learning more and upgrading yourself and skills. And then you go to one of these universities or places to learn, and you meet Jocelyn.
Yeah. Well, okay. So, a lot of this is back and forth
Yeah.
to New York, but I'm back in New York now. We're into Act 3. The
Mhm.
memoir is constructed around 4 acts
Yes.
because I have a theater background. I think acts rather than chapters, right?
Mhm.
So at the end of Act 3, right, where I am teaching Soviet immigrants in New York, right, and I am quite Soviet Jews coming to New York, right? So, and my family many years ago came from that part of the world. They came from uh, what today would be Ukraine, but they spoke Hungarian, they came to New York. It's a typical immigrant story. And now I'm meeting the immigrants of 19, what, 19, what year would this be? 1970, 1979. I'm in New York, right? And I'm very moved by their stories. And I thought, well, I'm not going to start feeling sorry for myself. These people came over, they had nothing, right? Nothing but ambition and aspiration and courage. And I was very, very moved by them. And I thought, wow, if they can make something out of their life, I can too. So at that point, I thought, well, I really like teaching. I'm not going to worry about being anything. My mother said, I should go to business school. No, I don't care about it. I like teaching. I'm going to go study how to be a good teacher. And I saw this ad in a journal for teachers. If you go up to Brattleboro, Vermont, there's this great program, 1-year program. You can learn, you can get a master's degree about teaching English as a foreign language. And I go up there for the interview. And I see this blonde lady, right? Very, very pretty. And I go to this party that night. I see her there, but I'm almost too shy to go up to her. But the following evening, you had dinner at these picnic tables, right? And I see her sitting there, right? And I sit next to her. I take my tray and I sit next to her and I start talking to her. And that's Justine. And so we get on. She comes down to New York and we do all sorts of things together. And basically, we've been together ever since. Well, she's French, and she had gone over to study English for the summer, and it really totally changed my life, and it all began at a picnic table, right, in Brattleboro, Vermont.
It's beautiful, and I mean that leads later to Paris, where you live today, and even the book that I don't know if you have. I have it on Kindle, so I'm gonna show here. It's a beautiful copy, but it's on Kindle, so it's. Let me see if it's. Yeah. Oh, it changed.
It is a bit, okay.
Yeah, it's. I read mostly today in.
Well, anyway, Where the Lantern Hangs, Amazon dot this, that, Amazon.com. There you go.
So you have been in Paris now, living for many years, and then you joined Ericsson later on. And the book is dedicated to Gabriel.
Right.
Can you tell a little bit about that?
Well, okay, so Jocelyn has a son called Raphael. Raphael has a son called Gabriel.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized, now I'm a grandfather, right? I mean, technically, maybe not, but it might as well be a grandfather. So Gabriel, he means a lot to me. And I just love being with Gabriel. Now he's 8. He's going to be 9 in a couple of weeks. And I spent a lot of time thinking about what his life is going to be like. And what, if he wants to learn about me, right? When he's able to read something in English or something like that, you get the book. So I thought, well, if you write a memoir, what's the point in a way? I mean, it's fun to write a memoir, but if I could dedicate it to Gabriel with the idea that he will read this one day, right? And he will think about, oh, his grandfather, that's what he did. Oh, my goodness, wow, he did all those things. And, maybe he wasn't such a bad guy or whatever. That's really what I wanted to say to Gabriel. And I dedicated it to him. And I thought, I've been to all these places, but he's going to go to places that I've never thought of going to, right? And it'll go on and on like that. And if he has a little bit of my spirit or my curiosity, then he will carry on in the same way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He calls you Pa, as I understand. This is beautiful. I mean, that even the whole idea for myself of playing the second half is kind of a memoir to my daughter, Maria. Where when I'm still alive and can tell the stories.
Yeah.
Steve, the book ends around 2012. I mean, it's basically when we met, right?
Yeah.
Playing the second half. When I start very much about playing the second half after you retire from work or so. But I'm coming to the conclusion that we have many second halves in life. Right? But it's still, if we cover them, when you left Ericsson, I mean, one thing I know that you went courses to learn how to write memoirs, and then you wrote memoirs and have been doing, working as consultant, you never stop, right? But can you tell a little bit how you deal today with things like that I think a lot about time, about how to use your time best way and this period in life, and how a normal day looks for you.
Yeah.
And I send you, by the way, when we do that, I send you a chocolate from Sweden, Aladdin. And it arrived.
Right here.
Yeah, and it didn't melt in the heat wave.
I hadn't opened it, so I can. Yeah.
That's very good. Because there is this, life is a box of chocolates. So
absolutely.
So what are the chocolates still left that you really look forward?
Well, I'm in a funny situation right now. I mean, I usually am looking forward to vacations and all sorts of things. A day is a good walk. A day is I mean, I like the streets and I like to go out and I like to talk to young people and I want to write the next thing. Mm-hmm. But at this very moment, my wife has been ill, right? Mm-hmm. She's had chemotherapy. Mm-hmm. She's at the end of that cycle and everything could be okay now going forward. So for me, time has taken on a different meaning. I am really living day to day, just trying to be useful and helpful to her. And we don't really dare look too far ahead. frankly, in a couple of weeks from now, may be able to do that. So I've had a different conception of time over the past 6 months. And I also realize I can't control, what's going on. So I have to kind of be there and cope with it and be supportive. And that's what I'm trying to do. So a good day, it really is a day where I think I'm being helpful to Jocelyn, and being supportive. I'm listening to her. I don't know if I'm doing this well or not, but that's what I'm trying to do. Whereas earlier in my life, I never had to think about things like this, right? I was thinking mostly about myself, frankly, and then, having fun and telling stories. But it's been very different lately. But a good day is also living your life, even though, right, she has had problems like that. But it's getting on with life anyway, right? So that means going out and doing the shopping and taking.
And continue with your walks, I hope.
You continue. You continue. You just continue. Yeah.
Oh, very good. And Steve, I hope after things get a little bit more calm after the treatment, that you really come together with Jocelyn and join us here in Skåne. I'm sure you're going to work.
I'm looking over there behind you. We're on our way.
So I hope we can.
It's better than the chocolates.
Yes. And I think we have to have a part 2 sometime,
Oh, anytime. I love talking.
Yes.
To you. Yeah.
Steve, thanks so much. This has been, I really, this needs to become not only a one film, but a whole series, because it is, for me, a celebration of life, a life about, being curious, fearless, and curious about people and all the adventures you have been doing. And finally, I think that you say that one of the themes is about home, which I really resonates, living in 2 countries.
Yeah.
But it's also about love.
Yeah.
And there is nothing stronger than love. So thank you so much. Anything, by the way, anything that we missed, any chocolate, anything that you want to bring before we close?
I'm watching all the other podcasts, and you prepare for these things. We who are on we know how much you prepare. And you asked me, what I would like to take away from this, and I thought of 2 things. I'm quite honored, actually, to be one of these 9 people, right? So I hope that I can fit in there with everybody, and that this whole thing makes sense, and you're talking to everybody and they have a different story to tell. So, I hope my story is also interesting. And I also hope that people read the book. And the reason why I like people to read the book, if they can read it and review it and tell me what they get out of it, it means a great deal to me. Because one thing is to write a book, but that doesn't mean anything if people don't read the book. And people are going to see things in the book that I didn't even know I put in the book. And that becomes a great pleasure for me. So let me leave it with that.
And to bring love.
What's that?
To bring love. And
to bring love.
And love to, how to say, we need to laugh more, Steve.
Well, we do. That's all there is at the end. The rest of the stuff, it's really not important at all.
Yes.
That much I've learned. Yeah. It's about love. It's about loving people. It's about finding interesting things to do like this. And I'm looking in the backyard there, and I think we're going to do this one day.
Yes.
And it's going to be fun.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Take care, man.
Please stay so we continue a little bit with the chat.
All right. I'm here.
Yes.